Obama, Trump, Biden, who defended the empire and who destroyed it? If you are forced to choose just one defender of the United States among the last three presidents, the answer might surprise you. It isn't the smooth-talking idealist, nor the populist disruptor. It's Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Barack Obama and Donald Trump? They were the saboteurs, both fracturing the country in their own unique, devastating ways. The Obama illusion, change that hollowed out the core. Let's go back to 2008. Barack Obama swept into the White House on the back of the subprime mortgage crisis with a masterclass in rhetoric. Change, yes we can. But how did that change actually manifest when the ink dried on his policies? The economic mirage. Facing a stagnant market after Lehman Brothers collapsed, Obama didn't fix the engine, he flooded it. He signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, pumped $787 billion into the system, and cranked up infinite quantitative easing, QE, to the absolute maximum. Between 2008 and 2014, the Fed injected roughly $4 trillion into the financial sector. This money didn't revive American manufacturing. It flowed straight into Wall Street, inflating a massive stock market bubble and accelerating the hollowing out of the real economy in favor of pure financialization. The global domino effect. The middle class shrunk, wealth disparity skyrocketed, and the frustration culminated in the 2011 Occupy Wall Street movement. Worse, this policy went global. Central banks around the world copied the Fed's QE playbook, ballooning global sovereign debt. Even global competitors like China launched massive stimulus packages to keep pace, inadvertently hyperinflating their own real estate markets and hollowing out small-town industrial sectors. At home, Obama leaned heavily into identity politics. Instead of uniting the country under a shared civic banner, Americans began sorting themselves by race, skin color, and sexual orientation. This fractured the fundamental social consensus of the republic. Abroad, his administration cheered on the Arab Spring, toppling secular dictators in the Middle East and opening a Pandora's box of religious extremism. The resulting vacuum birthed ISIS, sparked the Syrian civil war, and triggered the catastrophic 2015 European refugee crisis. At home, not a single mile of high-speed rail was built, infrastructure crumbled, and the healthcare reform, Obamacare, ended up squeezing the middle class while remaining unaffordable for the poorest. By the time he left office, Obama had acted as the unwitting undertaker of Pax Americana. He was a modern Winston Churchill, presiding over the liquidation of an empire while writing eloquent memoirs. 2. Trump's isolationism, squandering the imperial capital. By 2017, the American working class was primed for a backlash. Enter Donald Trump, promising to make America great again, build a wall, and look out for the forgotten blue-collar workers. But Trump proved to be even more reckless than his predecessor. To fund his domestic agenda and border security, Trump borrowed aggressively. The national debt during his single term grew at a pace that outstripped Obama's entire 8 years. The tariff bludgeon. To combat massive trade deficits, Trump dusted off the Reagan playbook, aggressive, unilateral tariffs. In 2018, he launched a scorched earth trade war with China. While it disrupted Beijing, it acted as a double-edged sword at home, driving up the cost of living for everyday Americans and sowing the seeds of long-term inflation. He swung the tariff bat at NATO allies too, demanding protection money and deeply alienating Washington's closest partners. The result? America's international credibility began to depreciate rapidly. The institutional crack. When COVID-19 hit in 2020, Trump had no choice but to flood the gates with even more printed money, leaving his successor with zero fiscal room to maneuver. But his greatest damage wasn't economic, it was institutional. His 2020 election loss culminated in the January 6th Capitol riot. The subsequent institutional backlash, the deplatforming of a sitting president, and the weaponization of post-presidency prosecutions shattered the final remnants of bipartisan consensus. If Obama destroyed America's domestic social cohesion, Trump squandered its global political credit. 3. Joe Biden, the helpless imperial paper hanger. In January 2021, Joe Biden stepped into the Oval Office. A literal Cold War fossil, he inherited a toxic cocktail of hyperinflation, a pandemic-ravaged economy, and deeply cynical allies. His diagnosis was simple: no time to waste. Biden operated not as a starry-eyed visionary, but as the ultimate imperial paper hanger, a seasoned institutional repairman frantically patching up the cracks of a leaking ship. Geopolitically, his record is deceptively formidable. He re-anchored NATO and weaponized the Ukraine war to lock Europe back into Washington's orbit. He neutralized the Nord Stream pipelines, permanently severing Europe's energy dependence on Russia. He didn't lift Trump's tariffs on China. Instead, he evolved them into a much more sophisticated, devastating technological blockade, putting immense strategic pressure on Beijing. He finally pulled troops out of Afghanistan, messy in execution, but a necessary liquidation of a bad asset. Yet, for all his textbook geopolitical maneuvering abroad, Biden couldn't heal the systemic rot at home. He could not stop the domestic inflation monster or the tribal political warfare. Ultimately, he was swallowed by the very hyper-partisan machine he tried to manage, exiting the stage as a tired, one-term president. In his 2025 farewell address, Biden left a chilling warning. Truth is smothered by lies, for power and for profit. He did what he could to preserve the architecture of the state, but the decay was already structural. Epilogue: the roots of the rot. So, who truly opened Pandora's box? We cannot simply blame Obama, Trump, or Biden. These three men did not create the crisis. They merely managed its symptoms. The script of the empire's decline was written decades ago, perhaps on a quiet afternoon in April 1983, when Ronald Reagan welcomed the Afghan mujahideen into the Oval Office, or in 1979, when the CIA signed off on Operation Cyclone. The contradictions of the empire were baked into its genetic code from the very beginning. These three presidents were just reading their lines.